Thank you and welcome to the Total Business Transformation Workshop. This is episode 4. It's all about your business model. This workshop is geared to helping coaches earn high 6, even 7 figures with the ease and flow method. Very much about aligning your coaching with your soul's purpose, with your business model, with your marketing, getting all that stuff in a line, coming from some of the, your higher soul's purpose, the deeper layers of who you are, as opposed to just kind of copying what other people are doing out there. So it's really about, hitting that 7-figure mark as a coach and doing it your way, making the impact you want with the people you want, the way you want, all the cool things. That's all the way that you want. And with me, as always, is Kavita Singh. Thank you, Kavita, for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Excited. Let's do this.
Yeah. All right. So one thing I see all the time when I go on Instagram is everyone, of course, everything's just like an ad for coaches. And it's like, hey, coaches, like, here's like the best way to grow a coaching business. Oh, high ticket is dead. You got to be doing the group coaching. Oh, you got to coach this way and all that stuff. So what's it's like your thoughts and takeaways when you hear all the people out there saying this is the absolute best way, like the best way to kind of run your coaching practice?
I think when people are doing that, it's like creating a trend, like a fashion trend, for instance, to say, and at this time we wear pointed shoes, the next time we wear heels or whatever it is, right? It's not to say that it makes the function of the shoes any better. The shoe is a shoe, but some people's toes may not work with pointed shoes, and some people's heels may not work with heels.
Yeah.
Right? um, so it's not about it being the best. It's the truth about that situation is that is the trend right now. If a lot of people are following the trend, it has enough energy and action to make it the thing for the moment.
Then it suddenly becomes but this is what everyone's doing, so I must be doing it.
And that's all it is. It's just something for the moment. It's not the best thing ever.
I love that comparison for clothing, right? Because if they're like, oh, but the trend is like overalls this year, and you're like, but I hate them. I don't look good in them. I don't like the way I feel in them, but I guess I should put them on because everyone's wearing it. Like, no, or just don't follow the trend. And then everyone will be in their spandex in 3 months or whatever it is. So I love that that way of looking at it. And can you talk a little bit about like how has, you've been doing coaching for like 10 years. How has your coaching model kind of evolved, and how did you end up with the way that you do your coaching now?
Yeah. Well, when I started, I think in a way it was good that I wasn't aware of all the trends. I was aware of what some people were doing, but I was looking at it and making sure that, is that something I want or I like or I aspire to do versus, this is the thing to do. Um, and then also where I was in my current reality, like if I'm at a starting point, I can't be doing something that I don't have a team or a system. Oops, I'm freezing a little bit. Or whatever it is for. Um, and that's where for me, you would hear me say over and over again that I would follow my intuition, I follow my guidance about what was the next thing to do. Some of it, well, usually when you're following your intuition, it makes no sense initially, but it makes sense in hindsight. Um, and so over the course of 10 years, I've created 3 different brands specific to me and my work. Um, and each one of those came from guidance. So I did when I first started, I started with Archangel Witches. It was a brand where I was able to do a lot of intuitive work. I had programs called Tapping into Your Intuition. Um, I talked a lot about the metaphysical, angels and um, the metaverse in that sense, and quantum physics, those kinds of things. I was able to like really work with those kinds of topics, and having people tap into insights that was bigger than just the practical system. It was the kind of work that would first give you a bigger picture overview, and then, having the system that would match that overview. And also um, things like soul purpose and those kinds of things to make sure that your heart and everything else was aligned to what you were choosing to do. So a lot of energy was spent in that direction. And then my second brand uh, was Kavita Thing Today, where I got to that point where I was evolving so fast that every day felt like a very different reality for me. You pretty much know that story for me. And
Yeah, it's still going on.
still going on, for sure. And and it was fun to call it Kavita Thing Today because today was the fun on as if it was a newspaper. Like, what is the news today? Yeah, that was the
Oh,
play on the brand,
yeah.
right? Like, what's happening now? Time is only now. There's only the present. What are you choosing to do now? All those fun things we got to do with that brand. So it was really me in being able to incorporate all these things in this human body. What do you do with that information? What do you do with all that intuitive and transformational work? How do you use it in a very practical way that um, offers lasting transformation? So there was that brand. And so I would think that, okay, I finished the first phase of my business. I evolved into a different brand. I was at that second brand. And then my third brand was um, called Alchemy of Origin, where I've gotten to the point of um, doing so much transformational work. Um, that's why I use the term alchemy. And it was the kind of work not only that affected the future, but sometimes it brought back things of the past, like from your childhood. And so you started working in both directions simultaneously while being present in your reality, right? And at some point, nothing hooks you, like your past stories don't hook you, and you don't have a fear of the future. And then you're able to really tap into the whole point of why you're here, what you came to do, the whole thing about origin.
That sounds
And
pretty great.
yeah, and to build it not only, not just a sort of a woo-woo thing at all. It was more um about beliefs and values and um like real life spirituality in practical form. Like, what would it mean to have this sort of awareness, live from this level of awareness, and then build really strong foundations? Like, if you wanted to build really big business structures, like a multi-million dollar business, what would that look like? And really go into those kinds of directions without um, dropping values like integrity, because some people in their journey they lose track of integrity, right? And so how do you
What?
actually hold on to that and
Surely
still
no.
build these kinds of these kinds of businesses, right?
Not
So
in the internet
that was
marketing world, Kavita. Get out of here.
that was what I was looking at. And then I finally got to the space where we're at now, where I was guided to honor each brand and bring them all back to life. And I was a bit that was exciting and terrifying for me. Like, what? If I have got to handle all those things. But people are at different phases, and I've come full circle. So I'm happy to be in a position to help people based on where they're at in their journey, and to walk my talk for each door, so to speak, because that's what my each brand represents at this time.
Yeah. And so all of that was just kind of like following guidance, intuition, like what felt right. It wasn't about like, well, the latest trends or whatever, whoever's making, look at this guy who's got 9 case studies of everyone making $500 million. And now you better do that one.
No, for me, when I looked at technology at the time, it didn't have the features that I wanted it to have. So I knew technology needed to catch up with my vision for what I wanted.
Hmm.
But I had to actually let that be. So that's why none of the trends really got me, because my vision was bigger than whatever was happening there anyway. And I didn't believe, well, it was an outside job. I know it was an inside job. That's how you make it sustainable anyway. Um,
It was an inside job. What do you mean? Like doing personal work, or what do you mean?
if you're chasing after it, then you'll always be chasing after it, right? But if you know what it means for you and you can anchor that, you can always create from it. So then there's more of it. There's an abundance of it. So again, it's just a lot of marketing talk and fluff and everybody running around chasing their tails kind of thing is how I saw it. So I didn't subscribe to that. But I certainly wanted to, I think, understand people was mainly my hiccup, so to speak. Because sometimes, like, I can see the things very clearly, but then to translate it into your world took a little time for me. So I had to work through those kinds of dynamics. And that's why I really love the model. When I came across the archetypes and really worked with it, it was a great, really beautiful model to show.
Like that's the
Um,
translation for you, the archetypes.
yeah, yeah, because it's like I can literally decode the entire world. Like if somebody's on their default level, every if they're in certain archetypes, it's the same behavior. Like there is nothing new about um, the basic shadow behavior pattern. But
Yeah.
if they're able to evolve higher from it, then it really gets exciting for me because then you start to tap into your uniqueness and really live from that space, and you um, you don't ever need to fit yourself into any kind of box or label.
Cool. And so the way, like when you look at a lot of the, the marketing out there, which even is, stuff I've written sales page for, the story is always like, I did all the things but then when I did this thing, that's what worked. So forget all the other things, whether it's, this is how to do the marketing, this is how to structure your programs. You got to like have your signature offer, like whatever it is. And then like, then you shortcut, then you don't need to do all the other stuff I did that didn't work. And you just follow these 4 things that were the key to everything. And then you'll have all the success in 4 days instead of 40 years like it took me, right? That's everything being sold right now. And then they'll be like, and then here's other people who say the same thing. And it's like, yeah, because your thing, like, sure, there's good stuff in it, and it just got them off their ass to like do stuff. Is another big part of it a lot. So like, do you feel any of that if you were to like kind of teach your way of like building your 7-figure coaching business of like, oh, well, after building 3 brands and all these things, like I've learned that like this was the 4 key pieces? Or is it like, nah, you kind of had to do all of it to like it was all kind of a necessary, even like the messy bits and the stuff that didn't work? Like, how do you kind of
Yeah,
look at it from
yeah.
that?
On a personal note, for me, it was all necessary and helpful for me. I wouldn't be the person I am today without it. And for somebody coming into my programs, especially if they're choosing to be on a one-on-one level with me, my model of coaching has always been, um, if you say that this is the thing that you want and we both recognize the truth in it, then I would be by your side along the way so that not only that you get it done, but your ability to have your own transformation will be unique to you. And when we get to that point, you don't need to be afraid that you don't know how to deal with it. It's true, you don't know how to deal with it. It's an unknown, but we're in it together. So I have you there to say what's happening for you, and you have me there to guide you, because based on all the things that I've done and all the people I've worked with, I've got a lot of experience. And then for the parts that I don't have experience, intuition also comes in handy.
Hmm.
So there are things that I feel and I see, and we navigate that space together. And when you go through that transformation, nobody's going to ever take that away from you. Like, that is a priceless experience. So you're not being a fraud saying that, oh, you should do this thing because it's the best thing ever. It's like, no, whoever you're working with, you get to tell them, yeah, this is the thing to do because I've been there and I've done that and it worked for me. And I can guide you through the process of whatever it is. So I'm always coming from that place of integrity with the clients. And it's true for many of my clients, they do need to be honest and they do need to have some courage to face the things that they're needing to face to get to the other side of it. It looks difficult in the beginning and it gets better and simpler as we progress. So that has been my model. And I don't think anybody in the marketing world wants to say that something is difficult when you start.
Sorry, I just I just had a follow up, and then they started doing trash pickup outside, and I got all jarred and wonky. But I had a super genius question that was going to be life shattering. Oh yeah, so back to your thing about the when you mentioned if you're chasing, then you're always going to be chasing. Whereas if you're kind of rooted in what exactly rooted in what, your vision of what you wanted, your purpose, what is it that you were kind of rooted in that kept you from becoming another chaser?
I think everybody is rooted in something. They just need to recognize what that is and not take it out and be like, oh, this shouldn't be here and try to get rid of it. You know what I mean? So for me, when that guidance comes in, it's not something that I need to argue with. Like, I can recognize the power of it. I can sometimes recognize why it's happening, or I can recognize enough to be like, yes, this is the thing. And for me, that's enough information to keep me on the path to what I need to do. When you're following intuition, it's like being in the front row seat of your own life, right? Because part of you have to show up to do the thing, and part of you gets to observe what happens as you do the thing. And I think I've done that so many times, I know better than to question that at this point. It's like, oh, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And I'm also wondering, because we talk a lot and you've got connection to guidance. And I feel like I don't have it in the way that I imagine it for you or other people, where it's like, oh, I got this vision. I just heard a thing. For me, it doesn't come across in what seems like this cool mystical experience. But it might just be all right, I've been thinking that I need to do YouTube ads for the past month, and this thought just won't go away. I don't know. It seems to come up in a way that doesn't necessarily feel like this, spiritual guidance thing. But I've learned it's more about it does kind of come down to trusting myself and trusting well, if this is the thing that just seems the most reasonable and it's the direction I'm moving in, there's a reason I keep looking at this guy's what he's doing, because there's a piece of that I want, and just trusting myself. So yeah, for people that are who are but I don't have God talking to me, Kavita. What I'm not getting guidance that's a vision. There are no burning bushes in any of that stuff. I guess, yeah. What would you say? I don't know. Am I on the right track there?
Yes, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I'm glad that you're bringing this to the table, because for everybody, their intuition looks different. And as you evolve as well, it also changes. It's not like one standard, this is the formula in which how your intuition is going to show up. So for right now, you're saying that it tends to be, hey, Brian, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Look at this thing, and so at some point, like you said, it won't go away. You're like, all right, what is that? I'm going to pay attention, right? And then you make that choice, which is awesome. For me, I wish it can be that simple the way that you're saying it.
My way is simple. Your way is cool.
For me, it might be a whisper of something, just like a tiny, like a quiet voice kind of thing. And if I don't catch it in that moment, that's it. Like sometimes I only have one chance to hear it. I need to pay attention. So this is where I mean that, on different levels, it just shows up differently. For me, sometimes it sounds like something I hear, sometimes it's something I see in my mind's eye, sometimes it's a feeling, a sensation. I need to find words to translate what the heck that feeling is. You've seen me in those moments too. Like, hold on, wait, something is happening. And as you create time and space for it, it just naturally evolves. I think the first thing for people that they need to pay attention to is, I'll say it this way, the fear of their intuition. Because first of all, like I said, your intuition doesn't make sense. Because even for you, Brian, you were like, well, there's something there. You don't exactly know what it is. It's not like spelled out like a perfect mathematical formula, but that's the direction and where you need to go. And as you take the steps, you get more clarity, right? It reveals itself to you. And what I'm also saying is not that you should live your life only from intuition. The way I do want to make this disclaimer, I see intuition as the bigger picture part, but there's no way your intuition would work if you also don't include your logical mind. Like your mind is meant to say, this is a step-by-step process, right? But when you're starting something, there is no system, there is no process. You got to take that leap of faith. Like that's how you start something. And once you have a sense of what it is and where you're going, then you can put the system in place.
Yeah, and that's the opposite of kind of what gets taught, right? Because I'm just laughing because I say it right, but like I'm the one that's in the marketing stuff, and you're just. But like, yeah, it's not like, oh, like you're just starting out. Well, here's the system. Here's the all the steps to get things going. Whereas it's and like again, and that can like help to get certain aspects in gear. And but it also like limits you to then, well, you're just kind of following someone else's framework. You're not kind of getting clear on your own and how to bring your own gifts to the table. So like embracing that period of figuring it out, whether it's in starting your business and who you're working with, or evolving your business of now I need to move on to this next people and who that is, or like testing out messaging, or like, every kind of phase of it. Being willing to figure out your way and then systemize it versus, hey, let's get started, let's get a system, so then we don't have to, which is like the transactional led business where it's just like, let's get the thing up and going, versus like the soul led business, which is a bit more like exploring and figuring it out and then condensing.
Right. And I want to add to that because the pitch here for the transactional business is that it saves you time, right? You have a done for you system. You follow the thing. It saves
Make
you
a bigger
time.
impact. You can have more time off. You'll get raving fans that build a statue of you. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not yours to begin with. It's so therefore it is a system, but it's not a satisfying system. I would say it might sound harsh here, but I'll say it anyway. It's almost like a glorified version of being an employee, because when you're an employee, you're still following the boss's system. when you go and start your business and follow somebody else's system, it's still their system. You have no creative contribution in that. You have nothing.
Yeah. Yo, that's a great point. That is not wrong. Your new boss just becomes like, the guru or whoever, and then you're just kind of taking orders and doing what they say, and you're building their business. But
Absolutely.
you just get a nicer cut of the revenue of the sales you make.
Right. And the point here is, I'm not saying that it doesn't work. It works. I'm just saying, how satisfied are you within that? Because you're an employee, you're following the system. Of course, you're going to get paid, and you might get paid faster than somebody who's trying to like figure out what is their soul-led mission or whatever the thing is, right?
Yeah.
Of course, you're the one making the money first and faster, but it's not sustainable. It's not fulfilling. It's not all those other good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why you become a good candidate for following trends. You're always jumping from one trend to the next, following the next hot thing, because you're not courageous enough to sit down and pay attention to your own guidance system.
Yeah.
That's more scary. So you keep running.
Damn.
Right?
And I mean, and also it could be guidance that says yes, use all of this person's system or whatever. Like that could be part of it. Or like you said, it's guidance wants you to do something else, but you take your brain says do this thing. And then that leads to okay, something feels like it's missing. It's not quite clicking. It's not quite satisfying. And then
but hold on, I want to make this point. You got to be clear with yourself. If the level that you want to go to is based on your level of courage. So if you're but I really like this person's system, I believe in it, I endorse it, then own that and run with it and make it work and use it. By all means, do that. But then don't use somebody else's system and then try to get the results of somebody who is going into that unknown of their own psyche to find what their sole purpose is. And then trying to say that you figured it all out, because then that's not being in integrity. And then ultimately you're lighting a fire in yourself, because everything is going to work against you. Your words and your choices don't match. So, that's one of the cool things about this sort of industry too. People are very easy to recognize when somebody's out of integrity. They can feel it within their system, even though it's not bad. And so somebody else might be waving all the big banners to be like, hey, buy my stuff. And people are looking at it and being like, something feels off, at the very basic level.
Yeah, that's that out of integrity thing. It drives me a little crazy I'm guilty of it too. I think I see it in marketers all the time where they're like, hey, let me help get marketing clients through Facebook ads. It's like, oh, how are you getting clients? Oh, through direct outreach. It's like, oh, so you don't do the thing that you say you're going to do for other people? Or in the coaching industry, it'll be like, well, I'm a confidence coach. And then you're just like, but you don't have any confidence. You see the importance and you learn stuff, but you haven't owned it yet. You haven't made that transformation in yourself to then help other people. And that's, where so much of the disconnect comes from. That's why I love your whole thing being of course I did it for me first. What are you talking about? Why would I do anything different?
But I do want to point out that, because I love that you're bringing up this part too. So let's take the confidence coach example, because I think it's so perfect. So thank you for that. Here is one of the challenges a confidence coach would have in his or her life. It would be lack of confidence. That would be their story, right? And how they got into being confident. The thing about it, though, is that they've gotten or gained confidence at some point in their journey. But if they continue to up level, then they will lose the confidence all over again, because they're at the new level. And they need to name that, right?
Yeah.
And so if they continue the journey continuously, then they would be a really qualified confidence coach, the kind that you like, because they would know how to lose it and regain it and lose it and regain it. I call myself a transformational coach. I don't take that word lightly like everybody else now calling themselves a transformational coach, because I've been doing it for the 10 years, but it doesn't mean that, oh, I've transformed myself, end of story. Like, that's my way of life every single day. At this point, it's almost like every hour. There's, it can be that level of crazy, which, you have gotten to the point of being like, okay, what version of Kavita are we at today when you greet me? Because you see how much I face it and how much I deal with it. And sometimes it's like really, really amazing. Sometimes at a point of tears, and those labels don't matter because it's still part of the journey of transformation. It's not a bad thing. It's just however it works for that particular team that I'm facing.
Yeah, you're just transforming. So that makes a lot of sense for you to be coaching people through that. Cool. And then a couple last points we wanted to make before. One was circling back from something we talked about on our last session, episode 3, which was about kind of like disproving a lot of the marketing trends and stuff that like, oh, you have to do all these things. It's like, well, I don't know, Kavita didn't worked out great. So what are we talking about here? And just kind of like freeing people up from that stuff. And one thing that came up was the idea of blind spots, and how a lot of coaching is about helping people through their blind spots, helping them like that's why when people are like, oh, I learned how to coach myself, like part of me is like, but coaching is inherently an outside perspective. Like, so yeah, it can be helpful, but you can't fully do it yourself. And some of the blind spots that we both talked about, like one was falling in love with potential. We talked about how you helped me with that, where like I would like meet a potential client and I'm like, oh, they're perfect, it's amazing, all the thing. I did the same damn thing in dating, by the way, and in both situations didn't turn out so well, because it turned out like the person didn't match my potential, or like they did. Like I saw this beautiful, like, of course we can do all these things and get to the promised land, but they weren't seeing that, or like they didn't see it for themselves. So it would lead to like this disconnect, and then me being like, well, what the heck? This like situation that seemed perfect fell apart. And then it was like, oh, I was missing. So I was only focusing on this piece and not the big, like not all of the pieces. And that kind of caused me to get lost. So that's my rambling for that. Your turn. I'm pretty sure you got something ready to go, unless you need a specific question around it.
No, I'm good. Yeah. It took me a while to get around to term that phrase, falling in love with potential, because just like you, it was something I did naturally in my business when I started. I saw people's potential and I got lit up wanting to help them fulfill it. That took some time in my journey too, in the business, in the coaching industry. And what I've come to realize, the gift here is seeing somebody's potential. Like, there was nothing wrong with that step. Right? It's always great to see somebody's potential. I think the discernment here was also asking the person, I see this in you. Is this what you wanted to do? And people can respond in a few ways. For instance, I'm making it as simple as possible here for the sake of our conversation. They can say, no, that's hogwash. I don't believe in that. And they just throw everything away for whatever you're saying. And you're like, okay, because at this point, they're not seeing it, and there's no way that they're ready for it. So there's no opportunity for change. And that's just what it is. It's not like you give up on the person. It's just now is not the time. They're not ready. And that level, that is a very honest conversation to have. Another person can say, yeah, part of me believe in it, but it feels far-fetched or a fantasy or something. And I have a hard time. This version of me has a hard time identifying with that potential. That would be a very honest thing for somebody to say.
Mm.
And then it would lead to a second question in that case, like, well, do you want to get there? And they've got to be honest with themselves to be like, their answer could be like, yeah, but I don't know how. Or their answer could be, it just seems really hard. There's no part of me that's ready to do the thing.
Too big, too
but
scary.
I kind of know it exists. I know it exists, but I'm not quite ready, which is a much better step than the first conversation, right? And then the third level of that can be somebody saying, yeah, I know, I see it, I know it exists, I don't know how to get there. And I would love for somebody to help me get there because it's driving me crazy. I can't seem to get myself there, right? And maybe a fourth or fifth level of that conversation would be like, yep, I see it. I am there. I am on the way there. I've got much of it figured out, but these few pieces are driving me crazy. Can't seem to get this other part. So that short conversation took many years to learn.
Yeah, that discernment's beautiful. Of like, oh, this seemingly kind of one problem is actually can like be really drilled down and broken down. And the other part around like kind of the blind spots that's related to your business model that we've talked about is you talked about having blind spots around like having structure in your business and it feeling kind of like confining. And look at that face. Yeah, like what how has that sort of changed and evolved as your business has changed and you've changed?
Right. I guess what I said earlier about when you know who you are and what you want to do, then it's great to have a structure to have support you in what you want to do. But if you don't know who you are and what you're doing, then no amount of structure will help you. You'd always try to get rid of it.
Damn.
Right?
That's good.
Because it's like trying to package a product that is not even fully assembled.
Yeah. That was exactly what I had when I first started coaching and I joined the programs. And they're like, and it was such a tight structure. And I was like, and I saw that how I could fit it. I'm like, I did learn this framework. I could make it work, but something just felt wrong. And so I'm like, I'm not doing the work that I know I could be doing. And then, later learned is like, oh, because like I needed to explore and like fly first and kind of experiment before starting to narrow down into the structure, like exactly like we talked about.
And I want to touch on that as well, because, there are not a lot of coaches out there that have the patience for that. I'll use that word because they're like, follow my structure. It's a 5-step process, do A, B, C, D, E, and you're good to go. You won't have any problems. And they're not considering like you're making that analogy of you need to fly. Yes, you're a little bird. You don't never flown before. You need to now figure out how to step out of the nest. And then when you're going there, it's like open your wings and fly rather than falling to the ground.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, if you fall, I can't help you. You didn't follow the system. And it can be hard in that way. And that's why I enjoy my modality of helping somebody where they're at. I'm not imposing my system on them, but my system is a big enough overview to support those nuances because my superpowers is about discernment, and therefore I need to look at the nuances for everybody. So while there's a statement that it's true, I need to see where it's true for you and where it's not, because each person has their own soul lessons and their own uniqueness that they bring to it. And I'm willing to take the time to see what that means and what that is for each person. If not, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's like everyone's just focusing on like the, build your business aspect and it's not working. It's like, or you're not feeling motivated. It's like, yeah, well, there's this soul lesson going on here that like you just keep getting hit in the head with that you keep ignoring because you're focused on income or whatever, that you can just point that out. And then it's like, okay, now that clears things up. And then you can start to man. So I just had this moment where I was like, I was just like, a year ago, I would not be saying these words. Just the amount of buy-in I've gotten into all this spiritual soul stuff from a year ago and before we met. I just sorry, I just had a moment of being like, huh, things have changed.
But I do want to say too, the year ago, the reason why you would not have said these words today is because for some people who are talking about soul aligned stuff, they're also using the marketing system, but just fluffing it up with soul aligned word stuff. That's why it's no different.
That's a great, it's that's exactly it. For a part of it, yeah, you can hear so much of it just being this airy, flary, like it's just because they know that those are like the right words, but there's not actually like the integrity behind it, the grounding of it.
Yes, there is no depth.
Yeah.
Because in soul work there is darkness as there is light. So it's never about fluff. So if anybody's talking fluff, soul stuff and marketing stuff, it's just wrong.
Yeah, same thing, just for the other game. Okay, cool. So one last thing I wanted to get into was when we talk about business model, pricing is also part of it. We've talked about pricing in earlier episodes as well. And part of the industry thing is always, well, raise your prices, double your prices, make them higher prices. Everyone just constantly saying raise your prices, basically. I dare you to enter a group that doesn't say that, or a code so what's and I know you've got some thoughts about that, because you'll be in a room and someone will be like, well, just raise your prices, and you'll be like, so yeah, share your thoughts of the blanket solution to money woes as, we'll raise your prices.
Yeah. First of all, I'm grinning because I'm also thinking, and then people wonder, why is there inflation? Right?
Yeah.
Because the same person who's saying raise your prices doesn't want to pay high price for something else, right?
Right.
So you got to live by what you're saying, like walk your talk. I really believe in that. Here's the thing about raise your prices. It looks like it solves the problem. Like, okay, I'll come back to that point. People say, oh, if I won the lottery, it would solve my life's problems, right? Like, and how many people believe that? Like, if we had to make the world vote on that, certainly a lot of people would choose yes, the lottery would certainly solve a lot of my problems.
Yeah.
Right. It's not to say that it wouldn't help. The money is there and you can pay for things that you couldn't pay for. But it doesn't really solve problems, because at the end of the day, it's just a thing that became available, and the person receiving the lottery, for the most part, while they might have become a match to win it and to receive it, they're not a match to sustain it. Right? It's the same way when you starting school is one thing, staying in school is a whole different game, right?
Yeah.
Right? Very different actions, very different mindsets. And so that's what I mean. When somebody's receiving the advice, raise your prices, the person saying it should be aware of their words, because are you taking the time to check that the person can handle the frequency of the higher price? Like, can their system handle it? Because if they can't, they will self-sabotage in so many ways.
What do you mean their system can't handle it? Like, I mean,
so let me say it this way. If you look at, I'm going back to the example with the lottery again. If you look at some TV shows, they actually took the time to follow up with people who've won the lottery, and they have found that their life has gotten incredibly worse than what it was.
Yeah.
So that's why some people believe more money, more problems. But you spent so much time thinking about having it rather than sustaining it. So like you're treating it as a means to an end versus the gift of what it really is. So then rather than it becoming a blessing and being sustainable, it becomes a curse because the energy is inverse. In the same way, somebody, if I tell you, let's do this way, if I tell you raise your prices and you're like, okay, Kavita told me raise my prices. And you go to a client and you're like, hey, I'm gonna charge whatever, $25,000 for an hour with me. And the friend's like, okay, well, I really want to talk to Brian, and apparently this is his price. Okay, I'm gonna pay that price. And you don't know what they went through to get that money to pay you, and you receive that, and you're like, okay, well, I did the thing because Kavita said so.
Yeah.
But then you're not in integrity with yourself. There's no part of you that's able to hold that. You do that a few more times, you're now feeling like a fraud, right? If let's say somebody's home going into foreclosure and that kind of stuff, and then you're seeing the impact of you simply saying, like, raising your price rather than doing due diligence to see if the person's willing to pay you that price and that kind of thing, then it becomes a real messy game. And this is where, I have a lot of marketer friends. It's funny to say that, but I don't believe in the systems as much because I see where it is so fast paced that nobody's paying attention to the gaps. It's like throwing somebody out into the races without even checking to see if they're a race car driver, that kind of thing. Thankfully for the friends that I have in the marketing world, they're taking the time to be in integrity and to narrow down on their clients to have only a specific type of client that they really want to help. And they're using the marketing systems in the way that it's meant to be used. Like, if we're going to do Facebook ads, this is the practical way of doing it. This is how it helps you, but you need to be in this position. If not, I'm not willing to do any ads for you, and it's really great to have those people in place. They're like, yeah, you want to use the marketing systems. You want to use the marketing systems to scale your business, but your business is not at that level to be scalable just yet. So I would not do any of these things with you, get to this point, and then we can have a conversation.
Yeah, people are not that discerning.
So I'm happy for my little group of marketing friends, because that's what they do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
So, keep going.
Yeah, so I'm saying all of that because what happens as a result of that behavior on a continuous basis, like following the advice of raise your prices, is that the person doing it will either go through a lot of shame or guilt or combination of that. And at some point, the business becomes a burden because their soul is not free in this process. And that's a terrible price to pay for following the advice of raising your prices. And that's why I make a face at it, because it's a curse in that way. And if somebody's just following blindly, it's heartbreaking.
Like there's plenty of people out there making a whole lot of money that aren't happy. And yeah, that can very much be a part of it, of like, well, like they found a way to make a bunch of money, but it wasn't, in alignment with their soul or what was really true to them. So like, it sounds like okay, just raise your prices. Well, not everyone has the frequency to handle that. It sounds like because it's not like aligned with like their soul's purpose, what their soul wants for them, and like they're not listening to guidance around like what their prices could be. Like we talked about before, how you just do you'll just like sit there and think, like you're like, oh, okay, that's what the price is for this thing. Cool. Like you're taking orders on what the price is. So it sounds like that's one layer of like, having holding the frequency of your price. It sounds like another might be like just belief in yourself of like knowing your worth and what the value, and like, can you really stand behind what you're charging versus just charging it because you were told? Like, is that a piece of it? What are the pieces of being able to hold
Yeah.
the frequency?
Yeah. There's a little nuance to the second one, where for sure you've got to be able to be in integrity with your prices, but there's a whole genius level of playing with prices, and I think for many marketers they saw that as the outside of it, and they weren't recognizing what was happening behind the scenes, and that's why, you know, the energy, the command was just raise their prices because that's what it looked like that brought the magic, but it's not. um in raising your prices on a higher level, it's when you're doing something for a certain price and everything has been upgraded so much that that number doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work for you and it doesn't work for your client.
Mm.
And numbers have a frequency. Both the person's selling the thing and the person buying the thing, especially in the coaching industry, need to be a match for that to happen and for that transformation to happen. So actually, transformation happens even before the sale begins on a sales call. If this is done right, the person receives the transformation even before making, like, purchasing something, because they're in the person's frequency of what's about to happen. By the time they purchase it, it's a whole different level of transformation. And then after that, it can get really rapid. And some of those things, depending on their storyline, not all of those pieces are pretty pieces, but they're certainly transformational pieces, and definitely pieces that that person needs for the outcome that they're going towards. You know, we talk about blind spots, so this is where all of that stuff shows up. So that's under the hood about the actual numbers and the person and the transaction. And again, each thing is unique. It's not just a matter of here's the price, this is what you pay, you know. And like I said, people can recognize when the numbers no longer work. And also, you know, if you're, again, it might be harsh words, but for some people, they behave as if they're selling their soul in the process, you know, just to have a sale. Those things are not helpful, because then they're not, if somebody's doing that just to get a sale, they can't offer their client transformation because they're not even holding the frequency of a transformation. They're prostituting themselves towards their clients. So,
Oof.
yes. So there's a lot that happens. And again, based on people's storylines and behavior, there's no shame about this. It's just that you got to know where you're at and then what you're working with, and then go forward from there, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. And I also just wanted to include the, you know, you like, if you're sometimes, like, the correct answer is raise your prices. Like, we tell people that all the time when they do our total business transformation and divide messaging workshops. They often undercharge, and because that's coming from that place of like fear not being good enough. So there is that element of like, you know, them like, you know, holding their, you know, owning their like confidence and abilities and what they're able to do.
I'll say it this way for those people that you know have attracted initially with this kind of thing, is that they have such a good heart and they want to help everybody, that they feel that raising their prices will cut them off from helping everybody.
Yeah.
But then if that's happening in their psyche, then they're also some point helping nobody anymore, because the energy becomes dense. And so it is very much the next step to raise their prices, so that the price themselves and their clients are in alignment for the work that is required and about to happen, you know. So that's really what it is.
Yeah, and that was cool. Like I had that moment after the client we talked about who I fell in love with their potential, and they're like, "Oh, it's too expensive." And then and I was like, "Should I like be lowering my prices for certain people or whatever?" And you're like, "No." And then you were like, "Actually, raise it. A, people should get used to you being at a higher price next time." Like, and B, you were like, "That's the energy, that's the frequency she needs to really like hold on to this and take it seriously and be committed to it." So like, yeah, when you talk about like the, numbers having frequency for both people, like, yeah, sometimes that higher number like helps them be more accountable and take it more seriously. There may be more to that I don't understand, but that's at least my
Right. Because
understanding.
there was also a soul lesson for you and a pattern that you were playing out in your life generally that
Yeah.
you needed to heal. And this was one way in which you were taking ownership in it. Because I already
This
knew that,
baby.
yes, because I already knew your heart was in the right place. But um it was just getting yourself to the finish line with the people and the clients rather than people. This is the other thing. Some people sign up for things and they're like, well, I paid for the thing, then you should do the work for me. Like if somebody's coming into a program with that sort of mentality, obviously I don't have those clients. But if I was the one having a client like that and I did the work, guess who's having the transformation? Me, because
Yeah.
I did the work. It's not, the transformation is not transferable, you know. That would just be copying, but it's not real code because it doesn't have the depth and all the goodness that comes with it. So, this is why I like walking with my clients and help them through that process where they get to do it and see it for themselves and nobody's going to take it away from them. It's their transformation. So, yes, and you got to see that for yourself as well when I pointed that out and you're at this space now. So that's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
That's when you can be like, yeah. And then like after that, like a bunch of clients closed and it was lovely. Because it's fun when you can be like, oh, this didn't happen for this reason. That's your soul lesson from it. And this is the thing to do next time, and then go. And then I went, and then it got better. So you have a fun way of coaching. Okay, cool. So that's then you like, yeah, we'll wrap it up now. And you were also talking before about like it kind of depends on the level you're at for like the frequency of the pricing. And then I thought, well, that transitions beautifully into the thing that you were going to talk about at the end, your big game program. And then we went off on a detour, so I blew the transition, but now we're going to retransition back into if people want more of this, like kind of figuring out the level that they're at so they can see like what's blocking them and how to be more awesome. Tell them about the big game program because it sounds awesome.
Great. So the big game program that I do is definitely helping people where they're at the point where they want to recognize what games that they've been playing that is not serving them and what is really their game and what is the bigger game in the grand scheme of things. And again, it's a very beautiful program where you get to see the basic standard overview of how things work and how people work. And then what that means for you uniquely and really start to raise the bar for yourself and your own choices. The best way I can say this in a nutshell is for you to recognize how you operate on a human level and then how you're able to access the superhuman parts of you, the parts that makes you unique, and then how to blend that part where it becomes part of your everyday life rather than hiding it or being arrogant about it, because none of those versions help. It's just you being free to be yourself. And by being that, you naturally make the world a better place. And you naturally also raise the bar for yourself and everyone around you. So it's a pretty cool place to be. And if this is something that speaks to you, your transformation also transforms your business and vice versa. So it goes hand in hand. I don't think I'll have a conversation about you without speaking about your business and vice versa. So.
Cool. And where can people go to learn more about that?
All right. So we're going to drop the links for the programs under this video. And if you guys have any questions, you can always, reach out to Brian or myself about the things that we offer. And Brian, I know you also have another program, lighten your load kind of thing.
This is to help clear
Talk
stuff
about that.
Wait, if you're not quite at the place to join the big game yet, it's about getting rid of like the expectations, fears, beliefs that just kind of keep people stuck in. If you wake up and you're just like dreading, the moment you wake up and you're already dreading all the things you got to do, and it just feels heavy and it feels like a lot, and it's been this way for freaking ever, and you keep going. But once I get a huge cash influx one of these months, then everything will be better. But you've been playing that game for fucking way too long, and you're done with that bullshit. That's what the Lighten Your Load program is all about. It's just, you end up kind of, your day can look the same, but it's lighter, it's easier, it's more joyful because you don't have all these, fears, beliefs, and expectations around yourself and around your business and around the people in your life that are causing all this muck and heaviness and stress and overwhelm and just bitterness and resentment and all that fun stuff. So that's over at McCarthyMindsetCoaching.com. Just shoot me an email, Brian@McCarthyMindsetCoaching.com, if that kind of thing sounds interesting. Because again, getting back to like your when we talked about like, you kind of have that space to explore and then start to create the system. Like, that's what I found. I was like, wait, all my clients are having the same like solutions. They come to me for whatever, and then they end up having more free time and just feeling freer and easier. Even if they're doing the same things, it's less of a burden and more of a joy as they like run their business or whatever it is. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just do more of that then.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where, your work is meant to inspire, because it's something that you've done over the years. It lights you up naturally, and this is what you can do blindfolded, right? Like, that's how we know we're really following our passion.
Yeah.
So reach out to us for whatever speaks to you, and we will see you in the next episode.
Great. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye, Kavita.
Bye.